Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Today's video is my August reading wrap up. And we have kind of a lot to get through because I read a lot more in August than I did the previous month, partly because I finished my full-time internship, so I haven't been working full-time, although I have still been applying for jobs and I have freelance work that I've been doing. Kids are getting ready to go back to school. So I've been busy, but I read quite a bit more, and I've got to say, I mostly read books I loved this month, so I have a lot of really great books to share with you, which is pretty exciting. Quick note and reminder before I dive in, you have through September 5th to use this code 2026 booked if you would like to get $100 off the trip to Costa Rica that myself and Izzy from Happy for Now are co-hosting. So this is a limited time offer. It can only be used a certain number of times, and then it is going away. So if you've been wanting to come hang out with us, have a chill, relaxing bookish retreat in January post holidays, we would love to have you. Let me know if you have any questions. You have through September 5th to use that code. If you are new to my wrap-ups, the way that these work is I start out by going over my reading stats. I enjoy the nerdiness of reading stats, but if you are not interested, you are more than welcome to skip forward to where I start actually reviewing the books. Then I'm going to talk about my hits, surprises, and faves. Because I'm now working more in the publishing industry, the books that you hear me talk about in these videos are books that I liked and would recommend. So let's go ahead and dive into my stats because I don't have a lot of time before I got to take over parenting. So if we run out of time, I'll just come back and finish filming later. Let's see how far we can get. In August, I read 21 books, which is definitely an increase from what it had been previously, for a total of 7,174 pages, or an average page count of 231 pages per day, which is nice. I've been getting through a lot more things. It feels more normal, but I guess also it's normal to not be able to read this much when I'm working full time, so it's fine, but that was a nice perk. I got to relax and read a little more. 18 of those books were ARCs, or advanced reader copies, books that I had for review, so the majority of them, which makes sense. I'm trying to get through my review shelf. I have some ideas in mind for ways to like clear some of it out. We'll see. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. There may be things coming, projects for that. This month I did not have any rereads. One of them was a graphic novel. One of them was indie or small press, and I did not read anything translated this month. In terms of format, as usual, I was reading a lot of audiobooks, but I read a lot more physical books this month than I have the last couple months, which is nice. This month, 14 of the books that I read were via audio. One of them was an ebook, and 6 of them were physical. So more physical books, which again, is a nice change. I just didn't have the time or bandwidth to read a lot of physical books for earlier in the summer. I had so much going on. Taking a closer look at those audiobooks, 3 of them are what I call shelf, which means I had a physical copy on my TBR and I got it off through audio. Although I will say there's a couple of books that I listened to on audio for review and then my physical copy came in the mail after I finished it, but that's not counted here. In terms of where the audiobooks are coming from, one of them was from Audible, one of them was from Chirp, 2 of them were from my library, 7 of them were audio review copies from NetGalley, and 3 of them were from Libra FM, including I think at least 1 audio influencer copy, which they offer me a few books every month that I can download for free in exchange for mentioning them. I also subscribe to them for a monthly credit. If you're an audiobook listener, I think they're a great alternative to Amazon, and you can pick your own local indie bookstore that the proceeds go to, which is awesome. I love it. In terms of age categories, this is fairly typical for me. 15 of the books that I read were targeted at an adult audience. 6 of them were YA, and this month I did not finish any middle grade books. In terms of publication date, the earliest published book that I read was from 2013, so a little earlier than it's been lately, which is nice. I read a total of 3 backlist books. These are books published prior to 2024. I also read 1 2024 release and 17 2025 releases. And again, this makes sense because I was reading a lot of books for review, so they are front list or newer books. I care a lot about prioritizing diversity in the books that I read, and so I track this and every month try to hit some benchmarks. My goal is to read around 50% from Black, Indigenous, and person of color authors, and at least 25% from openly queer authors. This month, 47.6% of the books that I read were by Black, Indigenous, or person of color authors, which is pretty good, and Also, 47.6% of the books that I read were by authors who are openly members of the LGBTQ plus community. So we read a lot of queer books this month, and yeah, I feel pretty good about it. There were a lot of great things. Looking at genre, this is where things get unusual. I have been reading a lot of romance and like less fantasy. Normally I read a lot of fantasy, and this month other genres kind of overtook that, which is rare. Fantasy is usually my number one or two spot. Part of this, I think, is because any romantasy I'm reading is getting caught up in that romance category. So I am still reading like speculative things. It's kind of complicated, right? So this month, 10 of the books that I read were romance, including 6 contemporary romances, 1 historical romance, and 3 speculative romances, which is going to be your sci-fi, fantasy, or paranormal romance. I also read 3 horror novels, 3 mysteries, 2 fantasy books, 1 contemporary fiction, 1 nonfiction, and 1 thriller. So half of it was romance of some sort, and then a mix of other things. Lastly, we're going to take a look at my Read What You Own challenge. This month was better. Yay, because it's just been going up and up because my reading has been down, but I've still been like getting so many books from publishers and things like that. So this month was a lot better, which is nice. As of the beginning of September, my audiobooks are at 250 on my audio TBR, which is up 19 from the beginning of the year, but it has stayed the same since last month. So I'm taking that as a win. Kindle has also stayed the same. It's 66, which is up 2 from the beginning of the year, but same from last month. And physical finally went down a little bit. It's 474, which is up 21 since the beginning of the year, but down 1 since last month. So we're finally seeing a little progress back the other way. And again, I do have some projects in mind for September that might help speed that up a bit. So we'll see how that goes. With that said, let's go ahead and get into all of the books, starting with my hits, then my surprises, then my favorites. And I'm going to get through these as quickly as I can because I would rather finish it now before my kids get home, but we'll see what we can do. Starting with my hits. This month, there are 6 books that I'm putting in my hits category. First is a very short book that I would call an essay. This is The New Queer Conscience by Adam Ely. I got this at the Instagram Threads Pride book fair that I was invited to, which was cool. I got a bunch of queer books, and I really like this. It is a nonfiction essay that I think is targeted at teenagers, but anybody could really read it, about the idea that queer people should stand up for and take care of each other across various lines and make sure that each other are protected in ways that other communities do. So this is written from the perspective of a gay, non-binary Jewish man, and he also talks about how that encapsulates people from other marginalized identities. So he talks about the treatment of Black people in the US, about Palestinians, and I think he has got a really good perspective. I liked this, I appreciated it. It's pretty short, pretty quick, and again, digestible, targeted for a teen demographic, but worth reading. I liked it. It's part of these Pocket Change collective books. I haven't read a lot of them. I've read like a couple, but I know they have different ones. And this one is from a queer activist, which is great. My next hit is a book that has been on my TBR for years, and I finally read it because of an in-person book club that I go to, and that is Destiny's Surrender by Beverly Jenkins. I love Beverly Jenkins, and I've actually read both other books in this trilogy, which is funny. I think I started with book 3. I mean, they're standalone romances. They're just kind of interconnected, so you can kind of read them in whatever order. But I read book 3, I went back and read book 1, and then I never got around to book 2. But book 2 was also great, and we had a good conversation about it. If you have not read Beverly Jenkins before, you really should. She writes fantastic historical romance novels that center Black characters in the historical United States. So this takes place in the Reconstruction era, and she knows her history. She does a lot of research and puts a lot into it. And this is interesting because it follows a hero who is multiracial. His mom was Spanish, his dad was Black, and they are landowners in California. And the woman who is the heroine of the story is a sex worker who he kind of fell for, but expected to just marry someone who was proper. But then she gets pregnant, has the baby, and is in a dangerous situation and goes to him for help and protection. and his mom kind of like pushes them to get married without going into too much detail. And so it's kind of a marriage of convenience situation, but with this complex background. I really liked it a lot. And one thing that I appreciate about it is that our heroine is not ashamed of her past. She's not ashamed of her history, and the hero is not threatened by it either. I feel like this is just handled really well. And yeah, it's good. If you haven't tried Beverly Jenkins, I do recommend her. She's great. For the next book on my list of hits, I have to give the disclaimer that I am friends with the author. However, I have been reading all of her books and I really love them, and I think this one is a lot of fun. This is A Mastery of Monsters by Liselle Sambury. Delicious Monsters is my favorite book from her, but all of her books are good. She writes speculative fiction and horror for teens that center Black characters living in Canada, and this is her take on kind of a dark academia with a secret society, but with a paranormal twist to it, with these people who can transform or shift into monsters, and it's really interesting. Our heroine is searching for her missing brother and ends up getting sucked into this secret society, and I think what's really interesting about it is that thematically she's getting at how sometimes there are organizations or universities that like to say that they're inclusive and everyone is equal and is accepted, but when you start to dig into it, you realize that there are inequalities and power differentials that are sort of baked into the cake, so to speak. And that's what happens here, where there is unequal power dynamics. And we have this heroine going in who like does not care what the consequences of her actions are, which makes it really interesting, and putting her in a position where she is in a sort of paranormal competition for reasons. It's very twisty. There's a large cast of characters. There's a lot happening. I really liked it a lot. I will say the world building is a little intense. So if you are somebody who wants like a quick, easy read where you can sort of breeze through it and you're not having to like take in a lot of the world details, maybe this won't be for you. But if you like that element, I do think the world building is really interesting. And while I think it slows things down a little bit in the start of the book, the payoff is there. The other thing that I think is kind of cool about this is it's the first book in a trilogy where each book can be read as its own complete story arc, which is nice. I love books that do that. I wish more books would do that. So they've got similar characters, but they're following a different competition in different parts of the story. So while there are still open questions and things that we don't know at the end of the book, the main plot of this story is concluded in a satisfying way. So it is a chunker. Pretty much all of her books are, but it's really good. There's a ton of richness and research and world building that went into this, and thought that's gone into the history of the society and how the things that happen in history have impacted what's happening now. And there's a lot. I really liked it a lot. So this was a hit for me. I do recommend it. My next hit is The Chemistry Test by Georgina Franke. Again, caveat, I am mutuals with this author. She started out as a booktuber back around when I first started, and we connected a little bit then. And now she's written her first romance book, which I think is amazing. And it was even one of the Amazon First Reads books where you could download it for free if you're an Amazon Prime member, which I think is so cool. If you are looking for a really sweet college age romance with amazing disability representation, you should absolutely check this out. If you're looking for steamy romance, that's not what you're getting here. It is not steamy. They don't really even kiss by the end, but it's cute. And I think the thing that's done really well with it is it gives a picture into the life and experience of a young woman who is disabled and going to university, and she uses a wheelchair but can walk in a limited way. And I think that's something that sometimes isn't talked as much about, where people don't realize that you can be ambulatory, like capable of walking, and still use a wheelchair because of fatigue or because of muscle issues or different things. And so in this, she has POTS, which the author also has. So part of this is coming from her own experience getting written into this romance. And I think it's really great. It's lovely. I feel like older teenagers could definitely read it because it's about a first year university experience. I thought it was really good. My next hit is A Tale of Mirth and Magic by Kristen Vale. I had this for review from NetGalley, and it was really cute. This is a cozy and steamy fantasy romance with a plus-sized heroine. I think she's like a half elf and the hero is a half giant or something like that, but she's hilarious. She's got this very strong personality, and the two of them end up traveling together through this fantasy world, and she only wants no strings attached romances. So she's like, we can sleep together because I kind of like you, but like it's not going anywhere because I'm not about to be tied down. And he goes along with it, even though he's like, yeah, actually though, I am probably gonna get emotionally attached and maybe this isn't what I can do. It's fun. It flips gendered expectations in that sense from who's on which side of it. The world in a lot of ways is kind of the backdrop. This isn't something where you're getting a lot of fully developed world building or there's a lot of other plot besides the romance. It is a cozy fantasy romance that is specifically focused on these two characters, and most of the plot things that happen, because there are people after them because she hurt the wrong guy when he was trying to mess with her. And so now they're kind of on the run from these bounty hunters, right? But a lot of it is just a danger situation that drives the romance plot forward. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun, and I would love to see more from this author in the future. The final book going in my hits category is We Won't All Survive by Kate Alice Marshall. I thought this was so great. Did I read this for that video? Yes, I did. Okay, so there is a video that I will link up above if you haven't seen it yet, where I was in the middle of reading like 8 books at once, which was way too much, and I needed to just clear out my currently reading shelf. And so I finished all those books and talked about them, including this one. This was one of those books. I love Kate Alice Marshall's writing so much. It always works for me. This is one of her YA books. Her YA is usually paranormal, and this one isn't. It starts out with almost like an Agatha Christie isolated closed circle murder mystery type vibe, but then it evolves into something different, and it's got a reality TV twist. So we have characters with a lot of trauma. Our main character survived an attack from her sister's sort of stalker slash suitor. He liked her and was kind of a creep about it, and then got violent. And she was a hero because she saved a bunch of people, but she got a piece of a bullet lodged in her spine, and it took a long time to recover. Now she's going on this survivalist reality TV show to try to win money to pay for her sister to go to college, because her college fund was kind of drained by the medical bills from what happened, right? But when everyone shows up, there's no crew. They end up locked in this abandoned ghost town. Challenges start automatically happening, and they have to figure out what's going on, try to survive, and then people start dying. And it's very twisty. I enjoyed it a lot. Thematically, it's doing a lot of interesting things. One of the big themes that this book is addressing is the fact that women sometimes aren't taken seriously when a seemingly nice guy who is a suitor is interested in them gets predatory, gets violent because he's been turned down. And I think that is a real issue. I like the way it's handled in this book. I thought it was really good. I like the diversity of the cast of characters. I thought it was very fun, very satisfying. Definitely a hit for me. So those are all of my hits. Next, let's talk about my surprises. This month, I also have 6 books going in my surprises category. First up is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I read this because some of my higher tier patrons for their birthday get to pick a book from my TBR that they want me to read, and one of my patrons picked this book out. I got the audiobook from Libra FM as part of their influencer program a few months ago, but hadn't had the chance to read it, so I was like, yeah, sure. People have been loving Rachel Gillig, and I wasn't really sure what to expect because her first duology hasn't really appealed to me. It's like a historical fantasy. I haven't tried it. Maybe I would like it. I don't really know. But The Night and the Moth sounded more interesting. I'd heard good things, and so I was like, okay, let's give this a go. And it was largely a pretty pleasant surprise. I was absolutely riveted for about the first half of the book, and the second half wasn't bad. It was still good. It slowed down a little bit through the middle, but I really liked the setup. I thought it was interesting. I always love cult vibes, and that's kind of what you get. It's a fantasy world, and the main character is a girl who was a foundling who had been taken to this nunnery, sort of, to be an oracle, where these girls have their eyes always covered, and when somebody wants to see a vision, they're drowned, but they don't die, and they see visions. It's weird, and there's weird spring water involved. So she is nearing the end of her 10-year term, and she meets a knight who comes with a king that she gives a vision to. and everything kind of starts to unravel. And I really liked it. I think it's compelling. You see kind of her deconstructing her worldview and what she believes to be true as it unfolds. And then there's sort of a series of tasks, I guess. I don't want to spoil anything, but like there's kind of a series of things that have to happen by the end of the book. I loved it. I thought it was really satisfying. I wish it was a standalone. I feel like if it had stopped a few pages earlier, it would have been a really satisfying standalone, because I'm not sure I need another book. You know what I mean? It's one of those books where I'm like, this is a great story, and I just want it to stop right there. And then the last few pages, like, start something new. I'm not sure I need something new from the story. I feel pretty satisfied with where it's at, but other people may feel differently, but I really liked this. It was a pleasant surprise. My next surprise is The Executioners 3 by Susan Dennard. Oh, I love this cover. It's so pretty. I wasn't sure what to expect from this. You know, I'm a huge fan of Susan's Witchlands series. It's like her epic high fantasy upper YA crossover series. And then she's also written some books that are targeted at a little bit of a younger audience. And I feel like this is definitely that. But it's also different in that this is a paranormal spooky mystery. It's almost like Buffy the Vampire Slayer vibes, sort of. There's not vampires, but like has some of those vibes, set in a small town, and it's a standalone. So it wraps up at the end in a satisfying way. It doesn't need to be a series. It's really fun. It's like a fun, spooky mystery with paranormal elements to it where people have been dropping dead. And what's interesting about it is it does get kind of dark and gory, but I think because the tone is so light, it doesn't feel heavy or super dark. It is kind of silly. The humor is very campy, and again, it reads a bit young. While the main character is a high school senior, she reads a little bit on the younger side to me, although there is some like intense kissing that happens with a crush. So I would say this definitely reads like it is written for teenagers. The romance and the mystery and just the vibe of it feels like it's written for teenagers, but it's a lot of fun and it feels like a good book for transitioning into fall. So I enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what to expect because I went into it not really knowing anything about the plot. I just was like, oh, Susan wrote it, let me get it. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Pleasant surprise. I actually have 7 books in my surprise category. I missed one. My next surprise is Myra by Nikki Gonzalez. I had this for review from NetGalley, and this was really interesting. Not what I was expecting, but I liked it. It's weird. I would call it almost literary horror. The main character is a queer Cuban-American woman who had kind of a toxic relationship with this girl who was her best friend that she's been disconnected from, and her life is kind of falling apart. So she gets a phone call from the friend being like, hey, I'm gonna be at this cabin in the Everglades, you should come meet me there. And so she decides to go. She goes to this like super remote cabin in the Florida Everglades in the middle of the swamp, and then it turns out that the woman's fiance is also there, and the house is weird. And then it turns into this weird fever dream of a book. It's strange and it's interesting, and it's about nostalgia and growing up and memory and identity, and I think to some extent queerness. It also ends in kind of a weird way, so it's giving me literary horror vibes, which wasn't what I was expecting from it, but it was good, so putting it in surprises. My next surprise is a contemporary romance, and this is the first adult romance by this author. I've actually never read from this author before, I don't think. Have I read from them? I'm not sure. I can't look it up right now because I'm filming on my phone. I don't think I've read from this author previously, but I know a lot of other content creators who really love their work. And so when I had a copy for review, I was like, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. This is The Build a Boyfriend Project by Mason Deaver. This is a queer contemporary romance with fake dating. And I'll tell you the things that I really loved about this book. I think the love between the characters is great. And the way that it explores dating and relationships from a queer perspective is really cool. It's offering much needed representation. Our main character, whose perspective we're in, is a trans guy, thought that he had the love of his life and then was broken up with, and has still been kind of grieving that loss, and also is stuck in a job that is not satisfying. He wants to be a reporter, he's not being taken seriously, and so when he goes on a really awful blind date with this gay Asian guy who turns out has never been on a date before because he grew up in small town middle America and wasn't exposed to gay culture and is like trying to find his footing. He tells his boss about it and is like, oh, well, you should like fix him up and do this build a boyfriend project. And so it's like fake dating supposedly to try to teach him to be a better boyfriend, but also he's trying to write an article that is more serious. So it's like interesting, and then they fall for each other. So it's dealing with a lot of different things, dealing with romance in the queer community as a trans person and some of the things that come with that. The love interest is a gay Asian man from small town America. And so it's dealing with the specifics of what it's like for queer people growing up in towns where they don't have a lot of options for dating or access to queer culture, what it's like as a gay Asian man trying to date. It's dealing with all of those things. And then also just like recovering from heartbreak when you thought you had found your person and you didn't, and how that can change and be something really beautiful. So there was a lot that I really liked about it. The thing that for me was kind of painful to read, and I think this is more like a matter of how you feel about conflict, is the central conflict was rough. You could see it coming from the very beginning of the book, and I was like, oh my God, no. And it's like hanging over them the whole time. And it was so preventable. Like a little bit of communication and some common sense could have prevented so much of it. This said, I am somebody who prefers external conflict in a romance. I prefer a romance where the couple is good and the issues that are plaguing them have more to do with like things happening outside of them, and that is not what this is. So that's where it was a little bit of a struggle for me. But if that doesn't bother you, I think otherwise there's a lot of really great things. It's very sweet. It's also quite steamy, and I don't think we get a lot of trans representation in steamy adult romances either, so I think it's cool. I did have this for review from the publisher. My next surprise equally could have gone in my hits category, but we're gonna put it here because I didn't know what I was getting into before I picked up this book. I just was like, cool, trust the author, we're just gonna read it. And I was like, oh, this is so different from his other stuff, but also great. And that is Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. Y'all, I love Chuck Tingle. This is another one that I read for that vlog where I was clearing off my TBR, so I talk about it there. Another person that I'm mutuals with, but wasn't when I first started reading his books, but we are now, and we've collabed. Actually, this was really fun. If you haven't seen it, I should link this one up above too. He agreed to be part of this series of videos I've done where an author picks my TBR. So he sent me a video suggesting a couple of books for me to read, and I read them and talked about them in the video. That was a lot of fun. But he's wonderful and such an interesting person. And I love the way that he writes horror that is thoughtful, offers great social commentary, and is also hopeful and deals with big issues that are really relevant, and yet they're all such different stories. Lucky Day partly has to do with Las Vegas and gambling, but also things like bisexual erasure, which is a real issue, in more of a metaphorical way, how to grapple with the world being awful in a way that doesn't make sense, in a way that maybe feels kind of random or uncontrolled, and how to live through that. And I feel like that is very relevant to a lot of what we're going through now. But this is more sort of cosmic horror. So the main character is a bisexual statistician whose mother dies during a event of extremely high unlikelihood. And then she ends up getting pulled into investigating what's going on. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to say any more than that, but it's a pretty quick read, and it's weird in the best possible way. And it feels like a great metaphor for the world that we're living through right now, but in a way that is kind of hopeful. Not what you would expect from horror. It is gruesome. It's weird. It's gruesome, but it made me feel better. So definitely a surprise, because I didn't go in with any context for what it was other than it's horror from an author that I trust and really enjoy, but would recommend. My next surprise is yet another one that comes with a caveat. I feel like I have a lot more than usual of those this month, but I want to be upfront with you if I have any kind of a relationship with the author so that you know. So the next book that I read, this is an author that I am working for. I'm doing influencer marketing for her because Simonton is re-releasing her first two YA mystery thrillers with updated text and all new covers. And so I am connecting her with different influencers who'd be interested in helping to talk about the book and promote the book. So I do have a vested interest in this, but also also I think it's really good. So let's talk about it. This is The Creeping by Alexandra Suraway. Like I said, it is a YA mystery thriller. The main character is a teen girl who, when she was like 6 years old, survived when her best friend was taken and disappeared, and she has amnesia about what happened that day. She doesn't remember any of it. So now she's just kind of like caught up in normal teen things, hanging out with her kind of messy group of friends, kissing lots of boys, trying to be cool and popular. But then she starts to get some of her memories back when another redheaded little girl, because her friend had also been a redhead, her body turns up in a cemetery. She's one of the people who finds the body, and she starts to remember in flashes what happened way back when she was 6 for the first time, and decides that she wants to investigate it. Meanwhile, she has a crush on a boy who used to be her best friend as a kid. Now he's this very uncool but super sweet teen boy who makes her heart flutter, and so she also kind of is crushing on him. So it's got a romantic subplot, them investigating what really happened and seeing what it was. It's got a lot of atmosphere. It's got messy characters and girls who aren't nice but still deserve kindness and love. And I kind of love that. I do love stories that are like, listen, like, girls don't necessarily have to be nice to be valuable and to be good friends and good partners. And I appreciate that. I think that that's really great. So I liked this. It was very twisty. I read the second half of the book in a single sitting. Like, I didn't plan to. I was at a coffee shop. This is another one I finished in that reading vlog that I did. And I just sat there and just like read the whole thing. I was like, oh my God, I need to know what's going to happen. So definitely a page turner. I was a fan. Do you recommend? I guess this is where I'll say this side job kind of dropped in my lap, but I'm putting out some feelers. So if there are authors who are looking for that kind of support for publicity campaigns, hit me up. I'm open to discussing. So that was a very pleasant surprise. And then lastly is a book that I got at an event I was invited to by Sourcebooks. I picked it up because with the title and the cover, I just couldn't not try it. I was like, okay, this is like very salacious is not quite the word I'm looking for, but it's close to that. Sometimes the right word just isn't there. But this is The Dead Husband Cookbook by Danielle Valentine. Like, this cover, it's a tomato. It doesn't look like a tomato, but it's a tomato. But like, I saw the cover and the title and I was like, what? Yes, immediately. I have to read this. So this is, I would say, a blend of mystery and thriller, and it's not quite what I was expecting. It follows an editor who's been sort of disgraced because of a decision that she made that had consequences for her publisher, who has the opportunity to redeem herself when this celebrity chef, who is famous and infamous, only wants to work with her to publish this memoir. Right? It's a celebrity chef she's been a fan of for many years, but rumors have always surrounded her because years ago her husband disappeared, and there are rumors that maybe she killed her husband, that maybe her secret ingredient has something to do with like the remains of her husband, because she won't share her secret ingredient in the meatballs, right? So like, is there cannibalism? Is there not? I don't know. But she has some rules. There is an NDA that has to be signed. She can't tell anybody else about the book, and she has to come out to the cook's farm to work on the pages in person instead of digitally, and the chef will dole out a chapter at the time for her to read. But there's some weird stuff happening at the farm. Our main character has some skeletons in her own closet, and this gets very twisty and very kind of bonkers, I would say, towards the end, which was a lot of fun. So for me, this was a blast. I read it while I was on vacation with my family. We went to Legoland, and it was incredibly entertaining. I really liked it quite a lot. So wasn't sure what to expect from it, but for me it was a hit. Those are all my surprises. Next, let's talk about my faves for this month. My kids just got home, but I have like 20 minutes before I have to be responsible for them, so I think we can finish this video up before then. Heads up for faves, this is a combination of books that are favorites of the month and favorites of the year, which is what I call my 6-star reads. So I will tell you which of the books got the 6-star favorite of the year status, and the others are favorites of the month. First up is Love is a War Song by Danica Nava. This was so good. I loved it. I was really hoping I would. There was a lot that I loved about her debut book, but it's got a main character who lies a lot, which is something I have a hard time with in a romance book, but this one really worked for me. Danica Nava is an Indigenous romance author, and in this book we have a pop princess and a cowboy who fall in love. Our heroine is Indigenous, but she hasn't been raised with any connection to her heritage or her family. Her mom has been estranged from the grandmother, and her mom has been her manager since childhood and is just always kind of pushing her to more and more things. Then at the start of the book, she gets canceled because she does a cover for Rolling Stone wearing a war bonnet, and people start calling her a pretendian because she's not actually enrolled with the tribe. She starts getting death threats, so the mom sends her to the estranged grandma's ranch to keep her safe until things kind of die down. While there, she ends up falling for one of the ranch hands who works there and is reconnecting with her family and her heritage that she's never known about. And it's lovely. It's got a great romance. I was rooting for them. Both characters really grow and change through the course of the book, and I loved it. I thought this was fantastic. So this was definitely one of my favorite things that I read this month, and I'm really happy about it. My next fave for the month is Gaysians by Mike Curato. This was so good and so well done. I guess I gotta be careful what I put on here, but it's a graphic novel following a group of queer Asian men who live in Seattle and kind of their life over the course of about a year and the messiness of their relationships, things that they go through, what it's like being Asian in the queer community. And all of them come from different cultural heritages, from Filipino to Chinese. One of them's adopted, one of them is plus size, which can be difficult being gay. One of them is a drag queen who is dealing with some gender identity stuff. One of them is newly moved to Seattle and just like a little baby wanting like a sweet romance and struggling with the hypersexuality of dating apps. And then, you know, there's one guy who's Vietnamese who is always getting around with lots of different guys. So it's dealing with like sex and relationships and friendship and culture and identity and the danger of being openly queer in some places. And I loved it. I thought it was really wonderful, really emotionally satisfying. You see growth arcs for all of the characters over the course of the year. And as a graphic novel, I thought it was really impressive. My next favorite for the month was The Library at Hellbore by Cassandra Khaw. This is another one of the books that I read for that reading vlog where I was clearing off my TBR, and I really loved this. I thought it was great. It is a mix of dark academia and horror, and it is definitely horror. It leans super gruesome. So it's set at this sort of college age academy for young people with dangerous abilities that could end the world to sort of keep them safe, except maybe the faculty wants to eat them. And it's who's gonna survive? School in this case. It's really interesting, it's really smart, it's very gay. The main character begins the book by murdering her roommate, but it's told in a non-linear style. So it kind of goes back and forth and you slowly put the pieces together of what's happening, and it's fantastic. I love Cassandra Khaw's writing as well. They write really interesting, very dark and gruesome horror, and then use words that have me remembering the days when I studied for the SATs, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea, but I kind of love it because it is used correctly. It's where it's supposed to be. So yeah. This was a favorite for me this month. Then there are two more that I think are probably both going to be favorites of the year. One of them I've been on the fence about, maybe because I read it so quickly. I kind of think that might be why, but I really loved it. And I do think that this is probably going to end up on my list of favorite books of the year. That is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I'm so happy I read this. This was our Patreon and channel member book club pick. August was really fun because patrons get to vote on what we're going to read together, and the poll for August was just made up of books on my TBR that I really want to read but haven't yet. And also what serendipitous timing, because this just won the Hugo for this year, and I'm really happy to have read it right as it was winning a Hugo. I think the news came out like just as I had finished reading it. So did I buy it because I think the cover is beautiful? Yes. And then I heard really good things about it and I just hadn't read it, and I finally did. This is a fantasy murder mystery blend, which I love. I love a fantasy murder mystery. It's got interesting character dynamics and a twisty plot. I feel like the main characters are sort of giving me a little bit of a Holmes Watson type vibe, but the main character is a young man who is queer and working as an investigator with the senior investigator who mostly stays in her room, and so he's like her eyes and ears. And the way the magic system works is interesting, is he's been altered in a way to where he can remember everything that he sees and hears. He can remember everything perfectly, which makes him really good for an investigator. And they're investigating this murder that turns into this much larger thing. I really enjoyed it. I found it so satisfying and twisty. The world is cool and really interesting. And I know there's a second book out, so I do want to pick that up. I would definitely read more. So this one definitely was like a 5-star read for me. Definitely a favorite of the month, maybe a favorite of the year. I'm still kind of sitting on it, but I loved it and I'm excited to talk about it soon at book club. Lastly, the book that did get 6 stars and is a favorite of the year. I also read this in that reading vlog where I was finishing off my currently reading list, and this was a surprise. I don't know that I necessarily expected this book to be one of my favorite things I would read this year, but it's really good. This is A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey McEwen. This book actually makes me think it might be useful to create a recommendation video of romantasy books for people who want more plot and world building. You know, because I feel like it's a mix, like not everything is like this, but there are some romantasy books where I feel like the fantasy is just sort of like dressing or like a backdrop for the romance. And this is not that. There is a central romance, but I also feel like this could be an equally compelling book if there wasn't a full romance in it, just because it's such an interesting world and the conflict is really interesting and it's a great book. I was really impressed. So I've been following this author on TikTok for a few years because she does really funny skits, but I had never read any of her books before. I got a copy of this for review from Saga Press, and I also got the chance to meet her, which was really cool. She was great and very nice and lovely. But A Forbidden Alchemy is set in this world where magic is a resource that is quite literally mined out of the ground and consumed by people, but the elite of society have been lying about it and saying that like, oh, we do this test on everyone when you're 12 to see if you can use magic. The truth is anyone can use magic, but again, they're lying about it to control power and control the flow of this resource. So at their 12-year-old ceremony, the two main characters, a boy and a girl, discover the truth. And one of them takes this vial and drinks it and then sort of manipulates her way into an elite academy. The other one takes it and goes back home and ends up being a part of starting a political rebellion. And then they meet again many years later as adults. And so there is a romance threaded through it, but there's also a lot of really interesting political dynamics and themes that it's exploring. I love this a lot. I think it's really good. It does end on a cliffhanger, so heads up about that. I will for sure be wanting to read book 2, but really great. I was impressed. So there you go. Those are my hits, surprises, and faves for the month of August. I feel like it was a really good reading month, and I'm looking forward to September. I feel like fall is always great for reading. I love the vibes. I'm excited to get into some more things and maybe do a couple of reading challenges to clear my TBR off a little bit. We'll see what we can do. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you reached this point in the video, drop me an alchemical emoji, something that seems appropriate to alchemy. It could be a flask, it could be something else. I'll leave it up to you, but drop that in the comments down below. Or for your question of the day, tell me about something that surprised you in your reading this month. A book that maybe wasn't what you expected it to be, or you loved it more than you thought, or it could be in a negative way. Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, it always helps if you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.